Welcome back to the Nancy Levin Show. Have I got a treat for you today? I've got my dear friend Gabby Bernstein here with us on the podcast. And for more than 18 years, Gabby has been transforming lives, including her own. She is the #1 New York Times bestselling author of 10 books now, including her newest, Self-Help, which just came out. Gabby was featured on Oprah's Super Soul Sunday as a new thought leader. The New York Times has identified Gabby as a role model for a new generation of spiritual seekers. She is a regular guest on Good Morning America, Today, and Live with Kelly and Mark, among other leading media outlets. She is the host of the Dear Gabby podcast and the innovative Gabby coaching app. And from her start hosting intimate conversations with 20 people in her New York City apartment, Gabby has grown to speaking to tens of thousands in sold-out venues throughout the world. You can find out everything about Gabby and her books and her podcast and her app and all the things at gabbybernstein.com. And I personally am very grateful and honored to be able to call Gabby a friend. And something that I'll share here is also that when I made my transition, leaving my position at Hay House after a dozen years, Gabby, you were really one of the handful of people who saw me, I got chills, who saw me through my transition and really held me in the becoming of who I am today. And so I have a really special, soft, tender place in my heart for you. And I'm really grateful to invite you to share yourself with my audience.
I feel that so clearly. And I remember that time and just believing in you so deeply. And you had so many of us that were helping you midwife this dream. And really the reason you had all of us believing in you is because you believed in you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Here you are. Here you are.
So yeah, here I am. Here we are. And we're here to talk about your latest book, Self-Help. The subtitle is This Is Your Chance to Change Your Life. And I'm going to be so bold as to say that I actually think this is your boldest book yet. Yeah. I think it is your most honest, true, practical, deep, and yet so eloquently and simple in the way that you lay out the process for us. And I would love for you to share a bit about what brought you to write this particular book at this particular time.
Well, Nancy, I always think I write my books for myself first. But this one is a little different. This one, I actually think of all of my books, I really wrote for the reader first, because this was sort of one of those moments where I felt like, wow, I am sitting on this incredible process that I've had the gift of experiencing. And it's a therapy that I've experienced in my own therapy and through being trained in this therapy. And I realized not everyone's going to be able to have access to this. And the world needs to know that it's here, but they're not going to necessarily have access to the therapy. And I'm not a therapist, and I'm not necessarily going to give them this one-on-one experience. But what can I do? I can demystify, I can simplify, and I can take this therapy and make it a self-help practice. And so that's what I've done. I've taken the therapy, internal family systems therapy, founded by my very dear, dear friend and brother, Dr. Richard Schwartz. And I have, with Dick's blessing, I have translated, demystified, and now democratizing this model that is life-changing. And I've turned it into a self-help practice. And that's what we're here for. And so that's why this is the first book I think I wrote for the reader more than myself, because I've already gotten the gift, right? I wrote it for myself in that, like, I've been itching to get it out to the world. I know that the world needs this, and that it is a great contribution that I can offer as a translator to give these principles and these methods to somebody that may not ever find their way into a therapy office, let alone an internal family systems therapy office.
That's something I really love about the way that you have written this book, is that it does feel like a translation. It feels like something that you have been able to give to us in a way that we can receive it. And I love also the way that Dick has given you his blessing. His foreword to the book is gorgeous, and the way that he really invites us in to learn from you. And one of the things also that I can't help but bring forward here is, and you and I have talked about this, that there is such a beautiful intersection of the way that IFS, internal family systems, therapy works and shadow work works. And as I've been reading this book, I've been feeling how essential these teachings are right now, where we are in our lives, where the planet is, because all of our parts within us, all of the shadow within us is being reflected back to us by what's happening on the global stage as well.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. Our parts are activated.
Our parts are activated. Yeah. So let's break it down and share with the listeners a bit about how IFS works, about the way that we work with our parts and what we call these different parts, and how the internal family can heal itself.
So I'm going to teach it actually from a self-help perspective rather than an IFS perspective, because it's just what I'm here to do.
Exactly.
So, but really recognizing that what I'm teaching is based on the principles of a therapy called internal family systems therapy. It's not about your external family. It's about an inner family of young parts of you inside. And so if you've ever thought to yourself, well, that pattern or behavior or belief is really holding me back, or I have a pattern or belief that I really don't like, or I notice that whenever I get triggered by my boss, I want to fight back, or whenever I feel out of control, I run to the refrigerator, or whenever I try to embark on a new project, I feel like I can't even start because I'm paralyzed, or there's a part of me that feels like I just won't ever attract the love that I want in my life. If you've ever had beliefs that are limiting, or patterns that are extreme, or behaviors that are sort of out of alignment with who you want to be, then you might be familiar with this concept of having these parts of yourself that get activated. And you've maybe never even thought of them as parts of yourself. Maybe you thought of them as just who you are. But I'm going to help you witness that these are actually parts of you. They're aspects of you. And these parts of you that are kind of managing your life on a day-to-day basis. You get a little triggered, then you act out in this way, or you try to stay in control to feel safe, or you people please because you don't feel good enough. Whatever these stories are that are running your life, these patterns, behaviors, and extreme patterns at times are actually protection mechanisms. And in the sake of this book and in IFS, they're called protector parts. And so why are these protector parts there, and who are they protecting? They're protecting really young parts of ourselves. So if you were to ask yourself, like, how long have I been people pleasing? Or how long have I been binging? Or how long have I been controlling? Or how long have I been overdoing it or numbing out? Likely you'd ask these parts of yourself, how long have you been around? And they'd say forever, since I was a child, for as long as I can remember. And why have they been there? Because they're protecting a very deep experience, a childhood experience of feeling traumatized, unlovable, inadequate, shamed, a part of you that may not have felt like you had the caregiver that you needed. It could have been a big T trauma, a small T trauma, something like being bullied at school, or maybe even something like sexual abuse. We have these experiences as small people, and our brains don't have the capacity to process these big emotions. And as a result, what happens is that we begin very young and very unconsciously to lean into these coping mechanisms, which are known as protector parts. And so right away, we start people pleasing to feel seen, or we start being a perfectionist because we're afraid of being out of control, or we start numbing out with TV as a child. Or I once heard an addict say that they could remember their addiction as long as they could remember, even being a child, just binging on orange juice as a way of getting a high above the feelings. Mm-hmm. And so if you think back, these protection mechanisms, or coping mechanisms, as you might define them, have really been around for as long as we can remember. And they're around because they're protecting against these exiled childhood experiences. And so for the sake of this book, we're not working with those exiled parts. Those are the parts that we would work with in a therapist, or with a one-on-one with Nancy, or something where it's really safe to do that trauma work. But in a situation with this book, we have this opportunity to work with these protection mechanisms. And the parts of us that are managing our lives, the parts of us that are on red alert all day long. And to start to have this space where we can begin to check in with these parts instead of check out. Because imagine if you got triggered. Instead of getting triggered, you went to the refrigerator, you went to the rage, or you went to the perfectionism, or you went to the numbing with the TV. But instead, you chose to check in. And you offered that feeling or sensation or belief some curiosity. And then with a little bit more curiosity, you started to feel connected. And then you asked that part about, what do you need? And you started to tend to that feeling rather than override that feeling. How different would things be? And so that's the process inside this book, Nance. It's a 4-step process of checking in instead of checking out. And what happens is as you start to check in with these young parts of yourself, these belief systems, they start to feel more calm and they start to feel connected to you. They start to feel this, maybe a sense of creativity or a sense of, maybe you feel compassion towards them. And as you start to notice those C qualities of calmness and compassion and courage and connection and creativity and clarity, that's when your true self starts to emerge. And that self is your undamaged, resourced God within you, Buddha nature, inspiration, spirit, the childlike energy inside of you. And that's the truth of who you are. And so instead of overriding your big feelings and emotions, if you check in with them, you can soften them and then self can emerge and you can start to return to your natural state. That's the process.
I love this. I love this so much. And I love the way that you so masterfully really guide us through this, what's a seemingly simple process. And I love what you're saying about check in instead of check out. And as we identify these parts, the invitation is to befriend and integrate versus annihilate.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Because we often will walk around judging ourselves for these patterns and behaviors. Just before I got on the call with you, I was talking to my VP of marketing and I was like, what do you mean people won't do the thing that I want them to do? You know, and sort of in that part, you know, and even right now I can check in with that and I can say, okay, that part has a lot of tension in her jaw and that part is pissed off because she's wondering why everyone's going to take too long to do these things. And that part, you know, what does she need? That part needs some clarity. That part needs some attention.
Right.
So I'm going to give it some attention right now. I'm going to breathe into it and I'm going to take some time to connect to it. And then I say that, even as I say those words of checking in with it and curiosity and asking it what it needs with connection and compassion, I noticed just even going through those steps for myself out loud right here, right now, I have clarity. I have more clarity, which is like, maybe I can think this through a little bit more. And I have compassion for the part. Okay, I see you really want to get shit done, Gabby. And I have a little bit of calmness, which is so sort of saying, well, maybe we can let people off the hook. And I have a connection to that part of me right now. And so as I start to say all that, Nance, my jaw starts to relax and I feel a little bit safer inside. And when we complete this, I might call up my VP of marketing and say, let's have some more clarity here. I noticed that this part of me was really activated. And I actually think that maybe we can get some more clarity and connect on this. And that is a very different way of living, right? Than staying blended with those parts of ourselves. And if I'd stayed blended with that part, I'd be in this juggernaut force of why isn't it happening my way? And not really giving it the clarity and the connection it needed, right? So this is a simple example, but I want to do it with your listeners because I know your listeners are they're self-help junkies here, right?
Of course they are.
You have like your audience is my exact dream reader. My dream reader is listening right now. So I want to practice dream reader.
Yeah.
Because you guys already know what we're talking about. You're already so far along. Okay. So I want you to think about something in your life, an area of your life, a pattern, a belief system, or maybe even an extreme behavior that you feel like is kind of running the show. And so maybe I would name one as a controller. They might be parts of you that are pleasing or parts of you that are overworking, overthinking, over worrying, or numbing out. So just notice something that's pretty present in your life right now. And once you have an awareness of that part of you, we'll be able to move to the next step. Now, if you don't even have an awareness of that part of you, you can just check in with your feelings and sensations right now. Do you feel anxious? Do you feel overwhelmed? Do you feel like your body, your back aches? Do you, just noticing something that's an undesirable feeling, we can check in with it. And so once you have that part, whether it's a feeling or a belief or a pattern, let's choose to check in. That's step one. And choosing to check in is a choice to not check out and avoid it and override it, but instead a choice to turn your attention inward. And that's the simplicity of step one. So focusing your attention inward, let's get some access to this part of you by becoming curious, which is the second step. And so ask some questions to this part of you. Maybe, how long have you been around? Asking this part of you, where is it in your body? Where do you notice it? What are the feelings or sensations that are attached to it? Are there any images or stories or experiences that are imprinted that represent this part of you? Just stay curious and asking it, what else is there that you want me to know? And just give it some space to reveal where it is in your body, in your mind. Maybe it has words. Maybe it shows you images. And as soon as you have a little bit of connection to that part, the next step is to compassionately connect. So offering more attention to the part, you can ask it right now, what do you need? And don't question what it says. Just trust whatever comes through. And now place your hand on your heart, and you can place your other hand on your belly and give this part some breath. And just let it know that you're here. Give it a little bit more breath. And now in this new state, we'll check for some shifts inside. So check to see, do you feel a little bit more calm? Do you have a little bit more clarity about this part of you? Do you feel connected to it? Do you feel compassion towards it? Do you have some confidence coming through? Do you feel a little bit more creative, courageous? And just checking in to see how you feel right now allows you to witness self-emerging. And my guess is that if someone went through those steps with me just now, that maybe they have a little bit more clarity about that part. Or possibly they have a little bit of calmness that's set in just through the breath and the connection, or they feel more connected to that part of themselves. They don't feel like they're pushing past it or dissociating from it, but they feel more connected to it. Maybe they feel a little creative energy, like a little buzzing in their body, or a little bit of a freedom coming through. That's self-energy. And the simplicity of these steps is that instead of checking out and overriding your big feelings and emotions and beliefs and patterns, instead you would check in with them. And by simply slowly checking in with them, but even quickly for a few moments, they have this opportunity to feel connection. And they feel like there's an internal parent connecting to them and asking what they need and offering compassion. They feel seen. And in that seen place, they can relax a little. And new qualities can emerge naturally. Mm. And that's the process. Mm-hmm. Rinse and repeat. Rinse and repeat. Did you feel change? Did you do it? Imagine you did it with me.
Yeah, I absolutely did. Yeah. And that's what I mean, it's something I have always loved about you is that we can be together for a very short time and it can go deep and it can hit the heart of the root of what needs to be addressed. And we're off to the place where we can heal ourselves, and that is self-help.
That's it. And you and I only do big talk, so we're only going to go.
We're only going to do right. Exactly.
See each other for the first time in 3 years. But what are your deepest feelings?
Right. Let's go deep.
Let's go to the parts.
Yeah, I love it. And all the parts are here, and all the parts are welcome. And
that's right.
I'm really excited for people to get this book in their hands. And again, everyone listening, Gabby's newest book, Self-Help, is out right now. And I urge you to grab it, do this practice that she's laid out for us, and see your life change immediately.
What's so cool about being on this podcast is that I know your audience will do this, Nance. I know that I'm talking to my dream reader right now. The reader that is so committed to their personal growth and spiritual development and an inner sense of safety and witnessing the shadow.
Yeah.
And so I'm already so confident. That's another self-quality.
Yeah.
So confident that this simple 4-step practice will give so much relief to this listener because I know they're going to do it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's like,
my audience takes action.
I could be talking to an audience of, millions of people, but they may not be nearly as likely to take the action than this audience.
Yeah.
I just want to extend my gratitude for this listener and for my pride in you specifically, because I know we attract who we are, right? And so your listener is a reflection of you and your commitment to your personal development and to your inner healing. And so this audience is going to pick it up.
Well, my dear, you are and forever will be, for me and for so many of us, the untethered force of light I witnessed you step into. Wow. Over a decade ago when we spent that particular weekend together where that landed in you. And I'm so grateful for you, for your friendship and for your teachings and for who you are in the world.
Right back at you. Right back at you. I love you so much.
I love you too. And again, everybody, Self-Help is the book. GabbyBernstein.com is the place to go.
Thanks, Nance.